New York, late 1970s. A small package weighing no more than a kilo just arrived from Sicily. It looks harmless, yet what's on the inside is deadly, but worth more than gold. Heroin, almost pure and ready for distribution. A kilo like this can make thousands of street doses. This kilo will generate millions of dollars in cash. The package lands at Frankie's, a cozy pizza parlor in Brooklyn. At first glance, nothing seems out of order, but behind the counter, millions of dollars of heroin are being moved one slice at a time. This was no ordinary drug ring. It was a meticulous system of distribution, hiding in plain sight and operating behind the facade of tiny New York pizzerias. What looked like pizza shops from the outside were the mob's drug stash houses on the inside. For years, no one knew about it, until one undercover FBI agent infiltrated the mob and brought the whole thing down. How did this pizza heroin ring operate? And how did one man manage to destroy a multi-million-dollar drug trafficking business? This is how the mob moved heroin behind America's favorite food. When French police broke the famous French Connection heroin route in 1972, the global heroin supply chain was disrupted. The Sicilian Cosa Nostra, which was primarily known for extortion and racketeering, saw the now unclaimed narcotic business in Europe as its new goldmine. Heroin was easier to move, harder to trace, and infinitely more profitable. The first link in the new global chain begins in the Middle East. Farmers in the poppy fields of Turkey, Iran, and Lebanon extract raw opium and sell it by the kilo. The raw opium is later shipped across the Mediterranean, where the Sicilian Mafia is waiting in the port of Palermo or Naples. In rural Sicily, barns and basements became clandestine labs. Chemists, often trained in Marseille or Naples, operating under the protection of the Cosa Nostra, refined opium into morphine base, and then into something far stronger, heroin. The operation was run by Gaetano Badalamenti, aka Don Tano, who was the mafia boss of Sinisi at the time. And he knew that if his business was to reach its full potential, it needed a way into the United States market. He called it Il Traffico. It didn't take long for Don Tano to find the opportunity. Across the Atlantic, New York's Bonanno family was weakened by internal wars and needed to find a new moneymaker. Their Sicilian-born capo Salvatore Catalano, also known as Toto, was no stranger to Don Tano. Both of them had grown up in the same Sicilian town and shared family and business ties. Toto Catalano became the perfect bridge for heroin to cross into the United States. Badalamenti and Catalano joined forces. Don Tano had the goods while Toto had influence on the U.S. underworld and a large number of pizzerias on hand. Together, they created a system of shipment and distribution that would go on unnoticed for years, behind a cover that had so much genius in its simplicity: pizza. Pizza shops were the perfect money laundering front for the mafia. Pizzerias are easy to open and deal mostly in cash. Back then, credit cards were not as common as they are today, especially for small purchases and among the working class. Pizza shops used to deal in small bills day and night, leaving no record or trace. $10,000 from heroin sales becomes $10,000 in pizza revenue by the end of the night, and no one can tell the difference. Pizza parlors were also not suspicious. In the 1970s, thousands of Italian immigrants were opening small restaurants across America, so the timing couldn't have been better. To the police, they were honest, hardworking people chasing the American dream, but to the mafia, they were the perfect camouflage. If a place like Al Dente Pizza in Brooklyn or Pizza Chef in Queens claimed to make $15,000 in a weekend, nobody could prove whether the money came from pepperoni slices or heroin deals in the back room. For nearly a decade, the system worked flawlessly, until one man walked in pretending to be a jewel thief. His name was Donnie Brasco, and he was about to change everything. For decades, authorities tried to infiltrate the mafia. They bugged phones and paid informants, but having a true insider was considered impossible. The Mafia wasn't merely a criminal organization. It was a family built on culture, brotherhood, and one important rule, omertà, the oath of silence. It meant no talking to the police, no blabbing about family business, and not even admitting to the existence of the Mafia. Silence isn't just a matter of loyalty, it's a matter of survival. Breaking the oath of silence is a one-way ticket to the afterlife. No trial, no second chances, just a bullet to the head fired by a lifelong friend. From the outside, the FBI could see the Mafia's power, but they couldn't understand how the operation worked because everything was protected by silence and secrecy. So, they took the biggest risk imaginable. They sent an undercover agent straight into the heart of the mob. In 1976, FBI agent Joe Pistone went on an undercover mission to infiltrate the Mafia, not as a simple informant, but as one of their own. Pistone built a new life from scratch. He became Donnie Brasco, a small-time jewel thief from Florida. For months, he frequented the bars where made men hung out. He studied their slang, their mannerisms, and their street code, patiently waiting for his opportunity. His first contact came through the bartender that frequently served him. He was a small-time Bonanno associate who believed Donnie was exactly what he claimed, a skilled thief looking for protection and opportunity. Through him, Donnie met Benjamin Ruggiero, also known as Lefty, an old-school mobster who had been in the Mafia for decades but never quite made it to the top. Lefty took a liking to Donnie. He liked his manners and sharp wit and decided to take him under his wing. Lefty vouched for Donnie with his boss Dominic Napolitano, also known as Sonny Black, who was one of the key figures of the Bonanno family in Brooklyn. And just like that, Donnie was in. The Bureau had a man on the inside. For the next 6 years, Donnie lived as a mobster. He celebrated their birthdays, shared meals with their families, and carried out their errands. He saw violence up close, sat at sit-downs about loan sharking and extortion, and learned the internal politics of the five families better than anyone on the outside ever had. At first, his mission was to map the Bonanno family's structure, find out who reported to whom and where the money flowed. But as time went on, he started hearing whispers that went far beyond New York about shipments from Sicily, about shipments arriving in crates marked as olive oil or cheese, about pizzerias that were moving far more cash than they could ever make selling slices. Donnie realized he wasn't just inside a mafia family, he was brushing against something much bigger. He didn't yet know the name Pizza Connection, but he was already living in the world that made it possible. The faces, the voices, and the habits he gathered would later help the Bureau connect the dots between the Sicilian Mafia and their American partners. The deeper he went, the more real Donnie became. He stopped being Joe Pistone with a badge and started thinking like Donnie Brasco, the thief. He went months without seeing his family. He lived constantly on alert because one wrong word, one small mistake, and he'd get walked into a room and never make it out. Everybody knows that if the Mafia even suspects someone is cooperating with the police, they don't wait for proof. They act quickly and viciously. Rats were either shot in front of others or disappear only for their bodies to be found later on in trunks, rivers, or construction sites. Donnie's only protection was his cover and the trust of men who would shoot him without hesitation if they ever found out the truth. Donnie was in, but he still had a long way to go. One night in 1978, Pistone put on a recorder and called Lefty from a payphone. Lefty had just come from a heated sit-down and was furious. Somebody was selling heroin behind the family's back, and Donnie was a prime suspect. On the call, Lefty said, "You shook him down, and you made it in junk money," implying that Donnie had made a deal and took drug money from someone. This proved the Bonanno family was knee-deep in the heroin trade, even though they had always denied it. This recording would later on be key evidence in court, but at that time, it almost got Donnie killed. Not long after that call, rumors started spreading that someone in the crew was leaking information. The Bonanos became paranoid. Bodies started dropping, and trust was shaken. If Donnie stayed, it was only a matter of time before he was eliminated. The FBI had to put an end to the operation. In 1981, Pistone was finally pulled out of the shadows. With the leads, recordings, and info he provided, the FBI took their investigation to a whole new level. They knew the heroin was coming from Sicily. The distributors were in the US, and the money was ending up in Swiss banks. Different agents in different countries had pieces of the puzzle, but no one had the full picture because the FBI had no direct authority over drug trafficking overseas. That changed in 1982. The US government passed new legislation, the RICO Act, that gave the FBI legal access to investigate organized crime. The Bureau was granted new authority, which finally made cracking this case possible. For the first time, they could chase the drugs and the money in a global effort. Instead of starting with street dealers, they started with accountants. Agents traced bank deposits from small pizzerias to foreign accounts in Switzerland, Spain, and Luxembourg. One restaurant in Chicago, almost always empty, was somehow sending hundreds of thousands of dollars overseas every single month. Another in New Jersey wired $200,000 to a Swiss bank controlled by Vito Badalamenti. Now, the FBI needed proof. They built a network of wiretaps, bugs, and translators stretching from Brooklyn all the way to Palermo. Every call, every conversation, every coded phrase was recorded and analyzed. They followed couriers through airports, watched money mules in bank lobbies, and filmed late-night meetings through the windows of Brooklyn pizzerias. The investigation was getting bigger, and it wasn't only in America anymore. In Italy, anti-mafia prosecutor and investigative judge Giovanni Falcone was investigating similar money flows tied to heroin shipments from Palermo. In Switzerland, bankers quietly flagged suspicious transfers. In Spain, police began tracking Sicilian fugitives hiding on the Costa del Sol. For the first time, law enforcement across multiple countries was working together against one single criminal network. After months of surveillance, they finally got what they needed. A wiretap captured Gaetano Badalamenti, giving instructions from Spain to his U.S. partners. The coded references matched perfectly with financial and shipping records. And with that, the FBI knew it was time to strike. April 8, 1984. Before dawn, hundreds of agents moved in silence across 3 continents. In Madrid, Spanish police surrounded an apartment where Gaetano Badalamenti had been living under an alias. When he opened the door, the once powerful Sicilian boss found himself face-to-face with Interpol and the FBI. In New York, squads hit pizza parlors, warehouses, and suburban homes all at once. Doors were kicked in. Cash, ledgers, and weapons were seized. The same scene took place in Chicago, New Jersey, and Florida. Every link in the chain was struck at the same time. In Palermo, Italian carabinieri stormed rural villas and city apartments, arresting couriers and bookkeepers tied to the same network. Within hours, the invisible empire that had spanned oceans was suddenly in handcuffs. And it all started with Donnie Brasco. Americans couldn't believe that their local slice joint had been part of a billion-dollar drug operation. The investigation had taken nearly a decade, but now the mafia's most profitable secret was out. In 1985, the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York filed charges against 35 defendants across multiple countries. 18 of them would face what became known as the Pizza Connection trial, the longest and most complex criminal trial in American history. Then came the shock. 2 high-ranking mafiosi, Tommaso Buscetta and Salvatore Contorno, agreed to testify, breaking the sacred omertà, the mafia's code of silence. Their testimony was the final nail in the organization's coffin. Not long after it, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty. 18 defendants were convicted on charges of narcotics trafficking, racketeering, and money laundering. Gaetano Badalamenti, the architect of the empire, got 45 years in federal prison. The pizza connection, worth more than $1.6 billion, was officially over. Joe Pistone, or Donnie Brasco, proved that the mafia wasn't invincible. Donnie Brasco didn't just help take down the pizza connection, he rewrote the playbook against organized crime. With RICO, the FBI later took down the heads of all 5 New York families in the famous Commission case, and eventually used the same strategy to take down cartels, gangs, and even terrorist organizations. If you're interested in becoming a YouTuber, whether a personal channel or a faceless one, we made a document to help you understand a few key points before you actually invest in YouTube. Click the link in the description. It's completely free. Subscribe and we'll see you on the next one.